Hey everyone, welcome to this webinar on smart nonlinear timing strategy. Before I get started, I would like to know if you can hear me clearly or not. So a quick yes in the chat box would be great. If you can hear me loud and clear, just say a yes, hi, hello. And once I can see enough responses on the chat screen, I'll get started. So if you can hear me clearly, just write a quick yes. Okay, I can see a question from Taha that my target is 4930. So do I need to do 7-level questions? Will 500 and 600 be sufficient? Taha, for V30, you can still look at 500, 600 level questions. But as far as, if you're looking at a Q49, then you definitely need to look at some 700 level questions. In fact, I'll be addressing this, so don't worry about it. I do have a slide on this talking about how many questions, hard questions, easy questions you need to get correct. And once you look at this, then your doubt will definitely get cleared. Okay. Okay. Devansh is saying hello. Yes. So all of you can hear me. So which is great. So let's get started. I'll very quickly introduce myself, this especially for those of you who are attending my webinar for the first time. My name is Saquib, and I am the product lead at GMAT Wiz, and I'm also the principal architect of the whole GMAT intelligence that you have seen on that you see on the platform. If you haven't tried out a platform, I would highly recommend looking at it. It's pretty unique, it's pretty personalized, and I'm pretty sure that you're going to like it. Apart from this, I've been in the tech industry for close to 11 years now, and I love taking the GMAT. I love taking exams. So I've taken GMAT and CAT myself. Those of you from India might know what CAT is, and I have a 99 percentile in CAT too. So that's briefly about me. Let's talk about what are we going to learn here. Um, so this topic is primarily about timing strategy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump directly into the type of strategy that are used. Okay, and when I say used, I'm just talking about the strategies that students use, not the strategy that is recommended. Just to be very clear. So I'm going to talk about what kind of strategies students are taught, or what they use, what they see on the internet, and those kind of things. And then based on that, I'm going to talk about I'm going to take a few examples to help you understand why those strategies are right or wrong, and what is the recommended timing strategy. If those strategies that students use, if they're not correct, then what should they ideally use. Okay. And once I make you understand what the recommended strategy is, while understanding that, basically I'll also be focusing a bit on the GMAT algo, because what I believe is that if you want to understand what kind of timing strategy you're using, you should use, then in that case you should also understand why are we suggesting that strategy. I don't want this webinar to be something where I just tell you, hey, use this and it will work. I want to validate it with data. I want to show you exactly how it works, why it works, and why are we suggesting whatever we are suggesting. And then briefly, I'll also talk about, if I'm suggesting a timing strategy, how do you, kind of reduce your time per question or improve your timing per question so that you can, implement this timing strategy. Okay. And finally, at the end, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. So I'll try my best to wrap this up in about 40 minutes, and I'll keep about 10 minutes for the Q&A. Apart from this, I would highly encourage all of you to ask questions. Okay, like Taha has already asked a question, which I'll be addressing in the webinar. If you have any timing related questions, I would strongly suggest that you write in the chat box. I'll take a look, and if it's already covered in the webinar, then I'll address it during that time. And if it is not, then I'll try to cover it up either in the middle somewhere or maybe at the end during the Q&A session. Okay. So let's get started and let's talk about the type of timing strategies which are suggested. Okay. Now, there are two very common kind of strategy which I've seen being suggested on the internet. Okay, and students use, especially when you are in the mock phase, when you're trying to take mocks. What you do, and this is basically for verbal. If you notice, I'm taking verbal first because I see people struggling a lot in verbal timing. So I'm starting with verbal. What I've seen is that since you have about 65 minutes for verbal, a lot of people, students, they kind of use a linear strategy. Okay, what they do is they kind of split this into 4 equal halves. Okay, and they say, okay, for the first 9 questions, I'm going to spend out 16 minutes. For the next 9, another 16, another 16, another 16, and that is the kind of way they try and take all their mocks and try and see whether the timing strategy is working or not. And I'm not going to comment now. I'm not going to say whether it's correct or incorrect. I'm just saying that this is another linear pacing strategy, which is kind of I've seen people use. This second strategy, which I've seen, is where some of you might have gone through our previous algo webinars, or some of them might have read on the internet how it's important to start well in the exam since it is adaptive. And what happens is that you start spending a lot of time in the initial few quarters. Okay, so you end up spending about 40-45 minutes in the first 18 questions. In fact, 40 to 50 minutes is how I'd put it in the first 18 questions. So you can understand, right? If you spend about 40 to 50 minutes, then you are kind of left with what? Uh, Roughly 15-20 minutes, right? 25-15 minutes is what you'd be left with for the remaining 18 questions. Okay, so you need to complete the remaining 18 questions in about 18 minutes. Now, tell me, which of these two strategies make sense? I want your opinion on it. What do you think? Which of these two strategies are good? If you had to choose one, which one would you choose? Or would you not choose either of these two? And I want this session to be interactive. Okay, so there are no right and wrong answers here. There's no questions, and these are all strategies. You could have your own opinion. I could have mine. I'm just talking about the best ones that I use. So feel free to give your answer, and then basis of that, I'll tell you whether you're or which one is correct. So Taha is saying one. Deepak is saying neither. Avi is saying first one. Tried both, failed in both. Neither, none. Neither. Those of you are saying neither. I hope you're saying it not after watching one of our previous webinars where we have talked about this strategy. But if you're saying on your own, if you're in this webinar for the first time, if you're saying that you're not going to use both these strategies, then very good. I do kind of agree that you should not use either of these strategies. I'll focus a bit on this part before I'll tell you which strategy to use. When I say this part, I mean I'll talk about why a lot of students spend a lot of time in the first 18 questions. What is going on in their mind, or before they because of which they decide to take up the strategy. So what usually happens is that this is basically a report that is generated once you take your GMAT, and they tell you how many questions that you get correct in each and every quarter. Okay, so if you see a 25%, that basically means that you've got two incorrect here. Okay, in fact, I think it's written in the slide only. Yeah, you get two incorrect here. You've got two incorrect here. And if there's a 38%, which is roughly 37.5%, they have rounded it off, then they have got three incorrect here. Okay, so if you notice that in the initial, if I get about two wrong, and if I do pretty decently well later on also, I end up with 7 mistakes, I end up getting a pretty decent score. Okay, which kind of leads us to believe that maybe doing well in the initial portion makes sense, initial quarters. And that's true actually, because if I give you an example out here, if you look at another report out here, okay, so this is a report that I've already seen, where I got two, three incorrect, total 7 mistakes, and I ended up with a 41. Now let's look at this report out here. Okay, now I've also written for your reference, especially those of you who haven't seen an ESR before, that this student made just 8 mistakes. Okay, just eight mistakes, nothing more, nothing less. And the only difference between these two ESRs, if you notice, is that the student got two more incorrect in the first quarter. Okay, that's the major difference. Apart from that, there's not a lot of a difference. In fact, in the second quarter, the student did well. They just got one wrong compared to the student who got two wrong out here, right? So if you had to take a guess, okay, what kind of verbal score this student would get, what would be your guess basically? What would you say this student might have got? And I'm clearly highlighting the difference. The student made two extra mistakes in the first quarter, okay, compared to this. Okay, and in the second quarter, if you notice, the student made just one mistake compared to two mistakes here. What do you think would be the score? Okay, so Taha is saying 25 to 35. Deepak is saying 38. Okay, what about the others, guys? What do you think is the score? 35, 35. Right, if you look at this, you'll get a feeling that okay, he has done two mistakes, the student just made two mistakes, right? So even if the penalty would have been, if there's some penalty, it wouldn't be a lot. Like if I had to take a guess, honestly, like if you'd asked, if you have given me this 5 or 6 years before, I would have said maybe a 37, 36. Okay, nothing less than that. But notice the score that the student got, just a V30. Okay, what's your take on this? Are you surprised, wondering how with just one extra mistake, look at the difference in the scores. From 41 you're dropping to 30. Okay, that is saying you're not. So when you're saying no, do you mean you're not surprised with this? Because frankly, I was. When I looked at the ASR, I was pretty surprised. I was like, okay, that's a lot of difference. In fact, 11 point is a lot just for one mistake. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is that once somebody looks at these two reports, the first thing which goes in their mind is that, hey, I need to do really well in the first quarter. And that's true. Okay, you need to do really well in the quarter. But notice what I'm saying is that you need to do well in the quarter. I'm not saying that you need to spend more time in the first quarter. There's a big difference here. Okay, so make sure that you focus on the fact that you have to perform well in the first quarter, irrespective of the time that you're taking. I'll focus on the time because this is a webinar on timing, so I have to tell you what time you need to take. But the point here is that performance matters. Okay, what kind of and what I've done is I've kind of taken these two the reports of these two, and I'm kind of showing you the difficulty level of these two students. And notice, if you get 50% question wrong in the first quarter, the kind of questions that you get served is almost below medium. Notice here, okay, in the first quarter, and you're getting questions wrong. So ultimately what happens is that in the second quarter you don't get a higher difficulty level question. Notice in the second quarter you are still below medium. So which leads us to believe, and obviously it is pretty clear as day, that if you don't perform well in the first quarter, the difficulty level of question that you'll get in the second quarter would still be below medium. Okay, while if you look at this student who got a V41, the kind of question that he's being served is, it's really high, it's close to medium high. Okay, why? Because he did well in the first quarter. So the difficulty level, and you can notice the difference is huge. This is a huge gap in the second quarter. And what happens is that even if you get a few questions wrong after that, in the third quarter, even if you get a few questions wrong or anything like that happens, in the fourth quarter, if you get a few questions wrong, it doesn't affect your score a lot, because in the third quarter, you're still getting medium hard questions. Okay, you're still above medium. While this student is still, even if you do well, you may somehow reach the medium level questions. So the main takeaway here is, what you need to understand is that it is very difficult to, if you make mistakes in the initial few quarters, then it's very difficult to recover. And to get close to the score of V41, and go from, even if you make 2-3 mistakes, the drop nowadays is quite huge, so you're punished a lot. So it is very, very important for you to do well in the first 2 quarters. And the one small point which I want to add here is that is why I usually recommend people not to consider the mistakes as the right metric. A lot of people, students who initially are in the initial prep phase, they ask me this question: how many questions can I get correct or incorrect to get a V40 or a Q50? And I tell them, hey, it doesn't matter, don't look at the number of mistakes. If I tell you the number of mistakes, that's kind of misleading. Okay, because you might end up with somebody with a 8 mistake might end up getting a V35, and somebody with as I just showed you, might end up with a V30. And the only difference between these two would be the number of questions that they got correct and incorrect in the first 2 quarters. Okay, so don't consider accuracy as the right metric. Also, one important point here is, and I'm sure you might have understood at this point of time, is, in fact, let me go back here a bit. Just one sec. Let me go back. Notice that this third and the fourth quarter is, even if you do well in the third and fourth quarter, it doesn't affect your score a lot. Okay, notice that this guy who got a V30, even after getting 100% correct in the third quarter and just making 3 mistakes in the third quarter, could not recover. So as far as the importance of the last few questions are concerned, which is the main point, importance of the last few questions, it is important, but it is not that important. Okay, so it's not going to increase or decrease your score by a lot. The main difference that is going to be created is always going to be in the first 2 quarters. So here it is important that we work on our accuracy. Obviously, we have to have a high accuracy, and we have to do it by taking the right amount of time. And I'm going to talk about the time factor. So as far as these two strategies are concerned, let me tell you, why are these wrong now? You have seen the reports. So when you saw the report, did you notice one thing, especially the difficulty level report? Let's stay here for a moment, okay? If you look at the difficulty level report, if you follow a linear strategy, let's think about it. If you follow a linear strategy, And then if you do well in the first 2 quarters, say for example, then in the third and fourth quarter you'll struggle. Why? Because you'll not have sufficient time left to do these questions, and these are difficult questions. These are medium hard questions that you'll be served in the third and fourth quarter. So if you want to do well in the third and fourth quarter, you should have time left in your hand to be able to do it. Because you need to understand, yes, I agree that the last 2 quarters are not that important, but still, if you want a V41, you still need to make less number of mistakes. Okay, so if you want to make less number of mistakes, you still need to have sufficient amount of time. So if you follow a linear strategy, you'll run short on time. Okay, because you won't be able to do medium hard questions, because they inherently take more time to solve questions. You won't be able to do it in 1 minute 50 seconds, right? And if you go with the second strategy, where you are taking a lot of time to do the first 2 quarters, you're taking a lot of time to do these. Understand that they're still at a lower difficulty level. If I have to draw a line somewhere, look at this. Focus on the green line. Green line is the average. Okay. So if you look at it in the first quarter, you're getting questions of this difficulty level, average difficulty level. In the second quarter, you're taking average difficulty level as this, and then it kind of stabilizes. So isn't it logical that if I'm getting a question which has a lower difficulty level here, lower difficulty level, I should spend less time here? Logically, think about it. If I take more time than necessary in the first quarter, even knowing the fact that these might be medium questions, then you're wasting time. You're spending a lot of time here which you shouldn't. Okay, so it doesn't make sense to use a strategy which is where you spend a lot of time in the first 2 quarters just unnecessarily, or just because you feel that, hey, I need to make sure that I get all these correct. What's the use? Even if you get the first 2 quarters correct, and you mess up the third and the fourth quarter, and when I say mess up, I mean royally mess up, then you won't be getting a V41. You will end up with a V32, V34, something like this. Okay, so I hope this part is clear, why the strategy where you start heavy is also not recommended. Why this linear strategy won't work if you're doing well, because you're going to struggle in the third and the fourth quarter. Okay, so that's why I am not going to recommend these two strategies. If you have any questions here, feel free to ask at this point of time. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think? Does this make sense? If you have any questions, please ask. There's a question, how to improve the speed in CR and RC. I'll talk about that. I have a slide on that also. I know these questions might come up, so don't worry. I do have that slide where I talk about how do you increase your speed. I do have a live case study also of a student who actually improved his speed. So I'm sure that's going to help. That's correct. See, that is a fear that you have in your mind, that if I get an easy question incorrect, then my score will plummet. That's absolutely true. But you need to ask yourself, why will you get an easy question incorrect? I am not saying that solve that question in a hurry. Please understand. What usually happens is that whatever we say kind of gets misinterpreted. So I'm clarifying it now. I'm not saying take a lot of time to do well in the first 2 quarters, because they are very important. I'm not saying that the questions are easy, so do them very quickly. No, I'm saying if a question is a medium question, there's an average time in which you can do an easy question. Give that amount of average time to that question. Nothing more, nothing less. That is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so I hope that part is clear. So what is the timing strategy? And I think once you look at this, it should be clear. And I think somebody asked me this question about, let me very quickly look at this. About the difficulty level, right? So see, understand, if you're looking at a V40 or a V36, whatever, or a V30, somebody asked me, I want a V30, how many questions I can do? Yeah, I think was the first question that was asked. So understand, these are the different tables and we have analyzed a lot of ESRs. Okay, looked at a lot of ESRs, and on the basis of that, we have taken a calculated guess of the amount of number of questions that you need to get correct to get a V40. So you can understand, to get a V41, 42, you need to get about 21, 22 questions correct, and they are of medium, high difficulty level. And you can understand about 15 medium hard questions you need to get correct out of the 36 questions that you're getting. If you're looking at if somebody's looking at the 34, 35, then that's totally fine. You have to just get seven or six medium hard questions correct, because that is the amount of medium hard questions that you might get served in the initial few quarters. If you get a few questions wrong also, that's totally fine. They'll start serving you medium questions mostly, and if your accuracy in medium questions is good, then you should be able to ace and end up getting a V34, V33 easily. Okay, so depending on the kind of score that you're looking for, this should give you a very clear-cut picture of what kind of difficulty level of question that you need to solve a lot and get good at. Okay, if your target is not a lot, if you're looking at a V30, there's no use practicing hard questions. Okay, but if you're looking somewhere around V35, V36, anything plus that, then there's a sufficient number of medium hard questions that you need to get correct. Okay, so keep this in mind. So and somebody asked me, how do I improve my speed or how do I do well? See, understand what usually happens is that whenever you're preparing or you're going through a CR module, RC module, Quant module, what you do is you focus on learning the concept. And I know this might sound, very repetitive. People don't believe in it. I'm going to show you a live example also of somebody who followed it and did well. But just knowing the concept is not going to help you. Okay, and just focusing on the accuracy part is also not going to help you at all. What you need to do is focus on skills. Now, skills sounds vague. So let me clarify what I mean by that. So what I mean by skills is that, see, if you know a particular concept, okay, then by just knowing the concept, you may be able to solve medium questions or easy questions. In fact, even medium questions you won't be able to do with a very high accuracy. But if you want to do well in a more, if you want to get 100% accuracy in medium questions or about 70-80% accuracy in hard questions, then you need to learn a methodical way to solve the question. You need to learn the approach of solving questions in quant. Like if I talk about quant, then you understand, right? If you know the concept of prime factors, but if you don't know how to apply the concept of prime factors or factors in when you're dealing with variables, knowing just the concept of prime factors or total factors is not going to help you out, right? Similarly, if you know statistics, the different tools, what is median, what is mean, if you know all of this, but you don't know how things change when you add, subtract a number, those kind of inference-based questions, if you're not aware of how to approach those questions, it's not going to help you out. Okay, so see, to get a 700 plus, if you're targeting a V40 or a Q49, what you need to do is you need to ensure that you get as many hard questions as possible. Okay, so to do that, you have to ensure that in the first quarter you may get as many medium questions or easy questions that you're getting in the first 9 or 8 or 9 questions, you get all of them correct. Ideally, that is what I would say, not more than one mistake at the max. Okay, so that what happens is that you start getting more difficult questions. And when I say skills, that you should if you develop your skills, then what's going to happen is that you'll be able to get these hard questions correct also. And don't worry, I'm going to have a slide where I'm going to talk about how to improve on this. But I just wanted to define what skill is. Skill is making sure that you are exposed, you know how to solve various different kind of questions. You're aware of all the different methodologies. You're good at inferring. These are basically skills that you need to hone and sharpen. How do you need to do it? That is something which I'm going to talk about in just about 5 minutes. But let's come to the main point. What's the timing strategy? The linear won't work. Starting heavy won't work. So what we usually suggest is that you start off something like this. You kind of keep the timing like this for each and every quarter. Okay. So we usually suggest to keep about 1 minute 40 seconds for the first quarter. Okay, where you're getting the 9 questions, you do it in 1 minute 40 seconds. Why are we saying this? Because the kind of questions that you get here is easy and medium. So guys, any easy or medium questions ideally doesn't take more than a minute or a minute and a half to solve. Like an SC easy question should ideally you should be able to solve in 1 minute. Okay, a medium question maybe 1.5 minute. Same goes for CR, 1.5 to 2 minute. Right now, if you do well, then what's going to happen? The difficulty level will increase. Remember the graph of difficulty level; it was increasing. So once the difficulty level increases, logically you'll need more time, right? So we are allocating more time for the second quarter. Okay, where you're getting medium to medium hard questions, where you need to ensure that you do well in the second quarter also. Okay, so you follow a non-linear approach. You don't go 1 minute 50, 1 minute 50 for each quarter. And third quarter, obviously, if you perform well, there's a good chance that most of the questions that you'll get here would be hard ones, where you will need more time. And believe me, if you're able to ace the first 3 quarters in verbal, then there's a good chance that you will get a pretty good score, a pretty solid score. Okay, and the fourth quarter you can be picky and choosy. Okay, because in the last quarter you have less time. You have 9 questions, you have 1 minute 20 seconds per question, which is frankly not a lot. But if you notice, the person who got a V41, he had 3 mistakes in the last quarter. Why? Because you can pick and choose. You can say, okay, out of 9, I cannot give a lot of time to all questions. So let me do one thing. I'll play on my strengths. So say, for example, if SC is your strength, and in the last part, if you get an SC question, you can attempt those questions. If you get a CR question, if that is your strength, you can pick and choose your CR questions. In CR, let's say, for example, you're not good with the evaluator, say boldface, you don't want to do it, you want to look at some other question. So that way you can pick and choose whatever you want to choose, and then try and ensure that out of 9, if you can get 6 questions correct, that is enough. 3 questions you can skip or get incorrect or do it very quickly, doesn't matter. Okay, this is kind of the baseline that we suggest, that when you're practicing in the practice phase, you kind of follow the standard process, standard numbers. So per question, SC should not take ideally more than 1.5 minutes. A CR ideally should take 2 minutes, and RC should take 1 minute 50 seconds per question. Obviously, I've averaged it out. Obviously, the first question of RC will take more time because you have to read the passage and then solve the questions. Okay. So, and another important point is, because I know that if once you look at this, you'll say, hey, how do I ensure this happens? Or do I need to spend 1 minute 30 seconds for each question? That's not the case. As I said, you may get an easy question here, right? This is an easy question. So an easy SC question doesn't make sense to spend 1 minute. If you need 1.5 minute, take 1.5 minute. Okay. But if you feel that's a question that you can do easily, why spend 2 minutes? Why spend 1 minute 50 seconds? Reduce your time. You save time there. You save 20 seconds there. Okay, whatever time that you save in those easy and medium questions, you can utilize them in the second and the third quarter. Okay, so increase or decrease your time based on the difficulty level. Increase or decrease your time based on your strong and weak areas. Although this 2 point is very important. If you go with the mindset that I'll give equal amount of time for each question, then there's a good chance that in an easy question you will be unnecessarily spending time and wasting time for no reason at all. Okay, so, and also while practicing questions, try and give try to give a right amount of time for each difficulty level, and this will take time. Okay, this requires a lot of practice, to be very honest, to get the the intuition, or to be able to understand, okay, the question that I'm dealing with might be a hard one, or this is a question that I am not that comfortable with. I've read it but I've not no clue what to do with it. Then in those cases, either you leave that question or you spend 30-40 seconds more to do that question. And that way, after a certain point of time, you will get used to the to take a call whether you need to attempt that question, or whether you need to leave that question, or whether you need to do it in 1 minute, or whether you need to do it in 2 minutes, 2 minutes 20 seconds. Okay, but following this strategy will definitely help. If you follow a linear strategy, you're done for. I'll pause here for a moment. I've been doing a monologue. So if you have any questions at this point of time regarding this verbal strategy, feel free to ask any questions at all. Okay, so I can see a question here. So from 9 to 18 is the most crucial part. Better not to do mistakes here. No, not 9 to 18. Ideally, I would say this 1 to 18 is crucial. In fact, a little bit here also, I would say the third quarter, 3 to 4 questions. So basically 20, 22 questions, I would say, is important. In verbal, at least. In quant, it's slightly different, which I'm going to talk about. But in verbal, it's like that. So this is like super crucial. You need to do well in this. Again, I'm saying do well. I'm not saying spend more time. I'll clarify again. The timing should, as you should stick to this timing only. You need to practice enough to make sure that you're comfortable solving easy and medium questions in 1 minute 40 seconds. Okay. Second quarter, if the difficulty level is high, we do expect students to make 1 or 2 mistakes, which is totally okay, especially if you have done well in the first quarter. And third quarter, if you can get as many questions as possible, also that's good. That's why we are giving you 2 minutes 20 seconds in the third quarter also, because in verbal, the first 3 almost kind of decides what you're going to get. Okay, Ta is asking, so can I skip the last passage because RC is my weakest? Ta, see, understand. If you're saying that you want to skip RC, are you 100% sure that you will be able to do well, really well in the CR and the SC section? If you're pretty solid, pretty confident that, okay, out of 9, I'll be able to do the remaining 5 questions absolutely correct without any issues, and let me take a guess in the 4 RC questions, then that is the strategy that you can try in the mocks and see how it's working out for you. But try it out. Okay, don't just say, okay, RC is my weakest, so let me leave it. There's a good chance that if you do well in your RC, because you have seen RCs do make and break a little bit. So if you can improve your RC, ideally I would say focus on RC. But if you're confident that SCCR you'll be able to get all of them correct, then you can definitely try out that strategy. That's not a problem. Okay, how to ensure consistency in SC questions? See, again, your questions are related to concepts. Okay, so I'll do a slide. I do have a slide where I talk about how to do well in SC, CR, RC in general. Okay, so I'll take up that question. Don't worry, just wait for 5 more minutes. What if you get RC in the last 4 questions? Deepak, that's totally fine. See, understand, if you get RC in the last 4 questions, that is totally okay. You have 1 minute 20 seconds. What did I tell you? You have to decide what your strategy is. Okay, so if your SC and CR is strong, if you have decided that you're going to, like Taha said, that SC CR is the strongest. So in the last quarter, if you're getting SC CR, you'll keep on doing it, right? You'll keep on attempting it because that is your strongest. If you get RC at the end, well, either you guess or whatever limited time that you have, you skim through an answer. Okay, if RC is your strongest and you want to attempt your RC questions, then whenever you're getting CR and SC, because you'll be aware, right, there's one RC still left to come. You'll know that because there are four RCs, one each every quarter that you will get. So you, with that strategy in mind, you'll know that okay, I need to skip a few here because RC will come and that is where I need to score. But this is only for the fourth quarter. Okay, in the first three you cannot skip. Yes, Deepak, 12 minutes, but that's totally fine. Understand, in 12 minutes I need to get six correct, and you will be able to get six correct easily, 5 to 6 correct. That's almost like 2 minutes per question. See, understand the question is if the majority of the first two quarters come out to be RCCR, that is a topic that's a weakness. What do you do? See, understand. First of all, when you say this, I would really need to understand what your target score is. See, if your target score is a V40 or a V38, then ideally none of the three sections should be your weakness. Okay, it should not be your weakness. You should be equally good in all three of them. When I say skip questions in the fourth quarter, I'm saying this based on relatively which one is weaker, just to clarify this. Okay, if you're looking at a score which is, v uh, 34 35, then in that case also, if you're looking for a v34 35, the table that I showed you there, you'll still get a, actually it's a bit far, yeah, this one. See, you'll still be getting some medium questions, medium hard questions. And this is, when I'm saying medium hard questions, I'm not focusing on the part that this question would be from SC or CR or RC. So ideally you should be comfortable solving medium, a little bit of medium hard questions of CR and RC also. Not with 100% accuracy, I can understand the accuracy might not be 100%, and that's totally okay. Okay, but at least there should be a pretty decent accuracy, like about 60%, 70%, or 60% at least in hard questions, so that in the first two quarters you don't end up making a lot of mistakes. Okay, and that's not going to, this is not going to happen that in the first two quarters all the question would be of RCCR. Just to let you know, it's quite possible that you may get two RCs back to back at the end of the first quarter and the start of the second quarter. That is something that we have seen, but it's not going to happen that in the first 18 questions SC will not come. That's not going to happen, because then that would skew these your scores also. Okay. Yes, when I say skipping, what I mean is that you need to mark some answer. Okay, it doesn't mean that you skip it. There's no option of skipping here. Please make sure that you attempt all questions. That's also very important. Attempt all questions, because if you miss any question, then also you get penalized. When I say miss, I mean out of 31 you ended up doing 29 and the last two are left and you ran out of time. That's also bad. That shouldn't happen. Okay. uh, what tips can be used to answer CR? See, I can give generic tips, okay, but that's not gonna help. Understand this. If you have 2 minutes, I would still focus on reading. 2 minutes is enough, by the way, to do a CR question. Okay, if you have 2 minutes and one CR question, that should be enough to do it. But I would still not change the process. I would still focus on my stimulus. Out of the 2 minutes, I would be spending 1 minute on making sure that I understand this question stem and stimulus properly. Okay, because if I do that, then if I have to quickly choose an answer, also I eliminate easily. So out of the 2 minutes, my tip would be that even if you're feeling the pressure, don't read the stimulus very quickly, because that's going to backfire. Because even if you end up spending 1 minute 20 seconds, 1 minute 15 seconds reading the question stem so well that you've understood each part of it, eliminating the option becomes very easy. Okay, but if you skim through the stimulus and you jump directly into the question, like you read the question stem, okay, it's a strengthened question, and then you very quickly read the stimulus and started looking at the answer options, it's going to backfire, because you might get stuck in the last two options, which is very common in these kind of exams, and then you'll have to take a guess, which doesn't make sense. So if I spend 1 minute 15 seconds on the stimulus, 45 seconds is more than enough to decide which will be the answer. Okay, now let me very quickly talk about the timing strategy of Quant. I have a few questions here which I'm going to take up after I'm done with this, okay? Because then we'll run out of time, and I don't want that. So keep on shooting your questions in the chat box, guys. I'll answer all those questions, okay? But let's just very quickly talk about Quant. So in Quant, understand that the number of questions that you already know is less, 31 questions that are there. And here also, if you notice, the first two quarters play a big role, especially the first quarter. Notice here that there's a difference of just one question. I'm not sure whether it's, oh, it's not written here. Let me just show you. Just my bad. So in this case, the number of mistakes is 1, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. Notice the difference between these two is of just one question, and the difference in the points is of 2. And this could be a big difference between a 680 to 700. A lot of people I know end up saying, hey, I ended up with a 680, I got a Q48 or a Q47, something like that. Why did this happen? Because of the first quarter. In quant, the first 2 quarters play a huge role, especially the first, as you can see. One mistake and the score drops a lot. But the but the last 2 quarters, again, it doesn't make a lot of difference. And I'm sure by this slide, with the help of this slide, you'll be able to understand. See, one mistake, two mistake, three mistake. How many mistakes? Total 6 mistakes. Okay, two, uh, three, 4 mistakes, 7, 8, 9 mistakes out here. Okay, and my God, this is a lot. This is like 6, 3, 2, 11 mistakes. So notice, if you do decently well in the first 2 quarters of quant and not so well in the last 2 quarters, the drop in the score is not a lot. Okay, so if you're somebody who's targeting 46, 47, something like that, then you can make sure that you focus on the first 2 quarters really well. Make sure that you ace it, and the third and fourth quarter, once again, you can pick and choose questions that you're comfortable with, answer those questions and get those correct. Okay, so this is a slightly difference between verbal and quant. In verbal, we usually look at the first 3 quarters, almost the first 3 quarters. But here in quant, the first is like really, really important. The second, in fact, is 2. Third and fourth make a minor difference of 2 to 1 or 2 points if they have to make. That's all. Okay. So to get a 47 plus, as I said, make sure that you get the first 15 questions correct. Third quarter, maintain a decent accuracy. I'm not saying that you mess up the third quarter completely. Notice that all the third quarters are pretty decent. Had this third quarter would have been if 86% mistake, then the score would have been less. Then this would have been a 44 or something like that. Okay, so the third quarter still has to be decently. You have to do well. And the fourth, you can select questions. If you're running short on time, select questions. Solve questions selectively. Okay. Important points to keep in mind again is that you should not make consecutive mistakes. And as I mentioned before, both for quant, both for verbal, never leave any questions unattempted. That's pretty important. And important thing is that you need to try out these things in mock. Somebody mentioned, does timing from mock carry over to the test in your opinion? So yeah, what I believe is that if you make sure that you practice this really well in your mocks, figure out what timing works for you, how it is working, what are the things that you need to tweak on your end, because I know a lot of people panic also in the exam, right? They feel, hey, and I want to cater to this panic point. In fact, from this slide, see what happens is I've seen people in the first 2 quarters, if they feel that, oh, I might have got 2 or 3 mistakes, so I have messed up my exam. So let me just ruin the remaining third and fourth quarter also. Please don't do that. See, understand, 47 is still better than a 44, right? I know it's not a 49, but what would you prefer in your score, in your in your final score, a 47 or 44? You would prefer a 47, right? So even if you end up making 2 mistakes, or you feel that you might have made 2 mistakes or 3 mistakes, still try and do your best in the second and third quarter as much as you can. Okay, don't mess this up royally. Don't get 86% wrong here, 86% wrong here. Please don't do that. Okay, and even if you mess a little bit of your first quarter or second quarter also, that is still okay. Please understand, when I showed you this, I ended up making one mistake here, right? But I still end up with the 48. And there are numerous combinations. Okay, these are some of the combinations that I'm showing you. There could be a combination where somebody might have made 1 mistake here, 2 mistakes here, and ended up with a 46, 47 also. So if you panic and if you think, no, I've messed it up, in the webinar I was told I need to do well in the first 2 quarters. I did not get 2 questions. I think I've made more than 2 mistakes, so let me just mess it up everything. Please don't do that. There's still a good chance that you might end up getting a 46, 47. Please take that instead of a 42, 43. Okay? And it's very important to try these out in the mocks. Understand, the first quarter you usually get medium questions, easy medium questions. So you need to ensure that you are exposed to all kind of topics. Okay, all topics. Like 4, 5 years back, we used to also tell people to skip a few topics, but now we don't. You may get a coordinate geometry question in the first 5 questions only, or a PNC question is the third question or second question. Nobody knows what you'll get. So that's like still a surprise part that is still there in the exam. So if you think that, okay, I need a 47, so let me skip permutation, combination, or coordinate geometry, or topics like which you're not comfortable with, I would strongly recommend not to do that. Make sure that you go through all topics. Make sure that you're decently performing decently well in all these topics. Okay. And the timing strategy for quant kind of works in the same way. I'll go through it very quickly here. That also here notice that since you're getting medium hard questions, here we usually recommend 1.5 minute, and then you gradually increase your time from the second and third quarter, because in my experience and what I've got the feedback from a lot of students, that the questions do become difficult in the second or third quarter. So if you follow a linear strategy here also, you're going to mess up. And in my opinion, medium questions can definitely be solved in 1.5 minute easily. There could be a medium hard question which might take 1 minute 40, 1 minute 45 seconds, which is okay. We're still okay if you take if you solve one medium question 1 minute 20 seconds, the other medium hard question 1 minute 45 seconds. That's totally fine. But average out, you should not take more than 1 minute 30 seconds to 1 minute 40 seconds. That's like the upper cap, is what I would say. You might think, okay, 62 questions, 31 questions, 62 minutes. Let me spend 2 minutes per question. Bad strategy. You'll struggle a lot in the second and third quarter. Believe me. Okay. So and here also make sure that you follow the same strategy, devoting the right amount of time for right difficulty level. The strategy is based on that principle only. Okay. In the third and fourth quarter, you can be selective. Okay. So do questions which you are pretty comfortable with, and don't spend a lot of time. I know that in quant, I've seen a lot of people, there's an ego issue. Hey, I'm good in quant. Why am I not able to solve this question? Please don't keep that ego. Even when we are taking mocks or trying out these kind of things, if I feel that I'm not able to solve a question, I simply mark something, move on. That's okay. I'll leave that question, not an issue. I'm making a mistake, I cannot figure it out. That's totally okay. But don't spend 3 to 5 minutes in a question and mess up your whole exam. That is something which I've seen a lot of people do, doing really well in mocks. In the exam, they got stuck in one question, the second or third quarter, spent 5 7 minutes, did not realize it, and the whole exam went haywire. So in mocks, when you're taking mocks, learn, there's something which I call the art of leaving. Okay, a lot of people might have learned about art of living, but leaving is also an art. Believe me, you need to ensure, you need to decide when to leave. You have to take that call. You have to get good at it. So in the third and fourth quarter, you have to take a judgment call that, okay, now I will not be able to do this question. I've spent enough time. I'm not able to figure out either the methodology, or I'm not able to figure out where did I make a mistake. Mark some answer, move on. In the first two quarters, this is somewhere some of you might fall for a trap. I've seen students come and telling me, hey, I felt the exam was going pretty well, but I don't know what happened. When I look at the DSR, I notice that in DS question, they have a very poor accuracy, because in DS it's very difficult to figure out, right, whether you've fallen for a trap or not. So in the first two quarters, especially if you feel that a question, DS question is very easy, believe me, there's a trap. Double check. Double check. Make sure that if you're marking an answer as E, could it be C? If you're marking an answer as C, could it be A or B? These are things that we are pretty aware of when we are taking a mock or taking a test. We check these things, because if it seems obvious, there's a trap. Okay. And this is something which is optional, by the way. If you're really good with your calculations, if you're targeting a Q50, your speed is good, then in certain questions, if you know two methods, then maybe, just maybe, you can try this out and see, double check your calculations using the other method also. But this is optional. This is only for a select few who are very good with calculations. But this does not make or break your exam. Okay. If you follow the first three strategies properly, believe me, you're going to do well. Okay. Before I talk about how to reduce time per question, let me take a very quick look and see if I've missed any questions. Uh, okay, I've answered, does timing for mock carry over the test day or not? Okay, there's a question, not attempting a question or attempting a question with wrong answers at the end when I don't have enough time. Which one is more penalized? You need to mark an answer, whatever answer. Not attempting is not suggested. You need to mark something. Okay, even if it's wrong, that's totally fine, but mark something. Okay. Is it possible that the person who scored 50 get a higher difficulty level question than a Taha, yeah, that's going to happen, right? The person who is getting a Q50 is getting a higher difficulty level, relatively higher difficulty level question than a Q48. Okay, could you also recommend where is it possible to take online mock exams? I'm going to answer that. If I make two mistakes in quarter one, two mistakes quarter two, 100% quarter three, Q4 won't be. Q4, what would be the score be? That's very difficult to answer. Please don't ask me these questions, because I cannot guess. I'm telling you, there are a lot of permutation combinations involved, right? Like two with a 100%, and I'm not sure in Q4 what would the score be in your experience? 100%, 100% Q3, Q4. See, you could end up with anything. The first two mistakes that you have made, it depends where you made it. Like for example, in Quant, if the question number one, question number two, if you end up making a mistake in the first two questions itself, then your score won't be very high. You might get stuck in 42, 43 only. But let's say if the first two mistakes that you've made is like question number say 6 and question number 9, question number 15, something like that, 13, 15, if they're scattered, then there's still a good chance that you might end up getting a 48 or a 49 also. So it depends where you make these mistakes. Okay, so I hope that answers your query, but it's very difficult to take a call. There's a very wide range from 40 to 49, 48 that you can get with this kind of a ESR, with this kind of accuracy that you're talking about. Now, as far as taking mocks are concerned, there are various sources. Okay, ideally, we recommend looking at the official mocks. Okay, but the official mocks are slightly easier nowadays. So whatever score you are getting, just subtract 10, 20 points from there at least to figure out what your real score is. So if you're getting a say, for example, 730, then you can expect a score between 700 to 730. So official mocks is something that you can take. GMAT Quiz also provides mocks. So if you're looking to practice mocks, and we have awesome analytics, by the way. So if you're looking at insights on where you're going wrong, where you need to work next, those kind of things, then you can look at GMAT Quiz mocks. If you're looking for free resources, almost every test prep company provides one free mock, so you can use that. GMAT Club mocks are definitely there. If you want to practice questions for Quant, you can definitely look at GMAT Club too. Okay. Now, so I hope the timing strategy part is perfectly clear. So let me talk about how to reduce time per question, and let me also take an example of a student who actually followed this and did well. Okay. So just a small request: if you're liking this webinar, I would I request you to like this webinar. If you're watching it on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're watching it, just a quick like would help. Uh, to- this will reach to a number of people if you kind of like this webinar. Okay. Now, let me very quickly talk about how to improve your timing. See, understand whenever you are, in your prep phase, on your fine-tune phase, you need to figure out where exactly are you not doing well. And in my experience, I've seen that there are two kind of issues that students face. One is that they are getting easy and medium questions wrong also. Now, whenever that happens, and it could happen in a verbal quant both. So now whatever I'm talking about is in general. Okay. Could be it's applicable for SCCR also, it's applicable for quant also. So you need to identify what are the topics where you're still getting easy and medium questions wrong. If that is the case, then that means there's a conceptual issue, because if you're getting easy, medium questions wrong, that means you still haven't understood the concept well. Okay. So if that is the case, then you need to work on your concepts. Okay. You could also look at another factor which is mentioned here in this slide, is that you may be getting it correct also, but you might be spending a lot of time in those easy and medium questions. Okay, so for example, you get a medium question of say, PNC or comparison, whatever you want to take it, and you end up spending 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes to do it. Okay. In the initial phase, it's still okay when you're in the learning phase, but in the fine-tune phase, if you're still taking 3.5 minutes to do it, and you're not being able to reduce your time, that means your concept is still not good. You're taking a long time to recall, or you're taking a long time to figure out how to apply that concept. Okay, or what that concept might be. You might be recalling, okay, like questions on tenses, you might forget which one to use, how to use it. Those kind of things might occur. If that is the case, if you're having a hard time recalling it, then in that case you need to go back to the concept, because if you're able to recall those concepts really quickly, then you will be saving time. The other is an application related issue, the issue that in most of the difficult questions there are multiple multiple topics involved, multiple concepts that are being tested. So you have to, in case of verbal in SC, a particular SC question could have be testing modifiers, parallelism, subject verb errors, everything might be tested together. Now if you're not following a methodical approach, if you're somebody who kind of skims through all the options trying to find out the differences between the options and then trying to figure out what that error could be, if you fall in that category, then obviously you're going to take a lot of time because you're not applying the process properly. So somebody who asked me, I think someone asked me what to do. How do you improve my timing in SC? How do you improve my timing in CR? Then please understand that if you, let me see who asked that question. I think Exceleri NC, I think, asked how to ensure consistency in questions. If you're inconsistent, and if you are taking more time, especially in difficult questions, then that's a clear indication that you might not following the right process to solve the question. That's for sure, 100%, believe me. Okay, so in such cases, you have to make sure that you follow the approach. Now, approach, it depends where you're learning it from. If you're learning from GMAT Quiz, then obviously we teach a particular approach. You can use that. So we teach a lot of frameworks for CR that you can use to pre-think quickly. Okay, in SC we teach a particular approach that, okay, how do I identify errors very quickly, or how to, look at how what are the different pause points that you need to look at. If you're seeing a verb subject, are you have you looked for the for the verb for that subject or not? Okay, if you're looking at a modifier, have you tried and figured out whether the modifier is modifying the right entity or not? These are the kind of questions that we ask you, we ask you to think about when you're solving the question simultaneously. If you're not doing that, if you're following a random approach, then that is an application related issue. So you might know what a modifier is, you might know all different kind of modifiers, but you're not applying it properly, you won't be able to identify it. Okay. If it's a concept related timing issue, then obviously it's a very simple solution. You need to review the concepts, cover the concept gaps. So you go through the concepts so that you can recall quickly, solve questions to identify whether you're able to solve them properly or not. Identify wastes. By this I mean try and figure out where are you still taking time. What are you what what kind of things that you are thinking because of which you're still taking time. Try and fix it. Okay, here you're doing question one at a time. So if you're doing, say for example, let's take the example of modifiers only. Okay, so modifiers is huge, a lot of things are involved in it, so you might have forgotten it, so you go and learn it, revise it, then you solve one question at a time and try and figure out from each question, try and learn what is taking more time. Why are you still taking time, what are you not being able to identify, and then work on that actively, or make a note of it, revise it continuously so that you don't make that mistake. And the third step obviously is then you can start solving questions in set once and this is where you time yourself, and you slowly and steadily gradually reduce your time. And the important thing guys keep in mind is that don't try to reduce your time drastically in one shot. I've seen people taking 3 minutes average time per question, and then they drastically try and see whether they can solve questions within 2 minutes or not. Not going to happen. Okay, it's better to gradually reduce your time. So from 3, try and see if you can comfortably solve questions in 2.5 minutes or not with the same kind of accuracy. If you feel now you're comfortable, then slowly gradually reduce your time to 2 minutes if you have to. Okay, but don't do it in one shot, not going to work. Now, I have a case in point. The case that I'm taking, why I'm taking this case is because whenever I talk about this step, a lot of people are skeptical. They're like, hey, the same boring shit. I don't want to follow this. It doesn't work for me, blah, 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 blah. So I thought, let me take the case. It's a very recent case. In fact, we conducted an interview of Manish also recently on GMAT Club YouTube channel only. I am going to share the link of that. And I would highly recommend looking at that this video. Okay, you should be able to see it in the chat box now. And I'm going to show you with data. Okay, I'm not just going to say, hey, Manish followed it and he did well. Let's look at his progress for a moment. Okay. So what he did was that in the initial phase, when you're starting, we kind of recommend that don't worry about the time. Focus on the concept. If you focus on the concept, if your concept is good, you can gradually reduce your time easily during the fine-tune phase. When he started his prep, his time per question was close to 3.5 minutes, and in fact, close to 4 minutes also in certain areas. Okay. But what he did was he took his time. He didn't come up with a deadline and said, "Hey, I need to complete take my GMAT in 1 month." He took his time, reviewed the solutions, in depth for the correct questions. Also, it's not that I got a question correct, so let me just leave it. I've seen people do that also. That's also not advised. Now, once he was done with that, he had to reduce his time, right? Bring down his time. Now that is where the fine tune phase comes into picture. And he followed the same approach. Figure out what was the conceptual gap, what were the areas that he wasn't doing well, what were the application process things that he was process related gaps that he had where he was not following the right process that we have taught, and then he practiced methodically to gradually reduce his time. Now again, this might seem vague because I'm just saying it, so let's look at the data. This is I'm not sure how clear this is, but this is his quant data. If you look at his timing, and this is from his dashboard only when he was in the uh, learning phase, look at his average time, correct and correct. It's like close to 3.5 minutes. Okay, a lot of people might panic. Look at his verbal average time, 3.5 minutes again, roughly. But notice during his prep tape, he did not falter on his accuracy. He focused on his accuracy. Look at his accuracy, almost close to 80% in SCCR and about 70-75% in RC. Look at his quant accuracy. Almost all of them are close to 75, 80, 75, 75, 80, 70, something like this. Did not compromise on a lot on the accuracy part. Focused on learning properly. Look at his process related skills, focused on the right of a process, made sure that he knew how to visualize, how to form equations, how to deduce logically. And we could very easily understand, okay, in geometry 73, that means he's not able to picturize well, so geometry score is less. And there's a direct correlation also. So we could understand where he needs to work, right? If his considers cases score was less, we knew that we need to work on his DS, because DS is where if you miss a case, you end up making a lot of mistakes. And in the fine tune phase, we figure out what are the areas that he needs to do well. So we figure out, okay, triangles, 3D, coordinate, PNC, interest, word problems. Where are the areas that you're not doing well? So these are the areas where there were some conceptual gaps. So he focused on improving on these concepts, went back to the concepts, learned those concepts again, did a few questions on these, and then moved on to the fine tuning phase, application phase. Same for verbal. Thankfully, his verbal was pretty decent. When I say decent, I'm not saying that his verbal was good in general. His stats was pretty good. So in stats, what we realized in SC, we realized that we need to focus on RC a bit. If you fix RC, there's a good chance that he'll be able to do well. So see, a methodical approach. Did not worry about timing at all. Did not come to me ask even once, "Hey, should I, reduce my time? I'm panicking. Should I go to 2 minutes?" When I did not do that from the starting. Never. In the final phase, this is his question bank, the Viz, which we call as Viz quiz, which is our question bank. Basically, our question bank is basically called Viz quiz. So we noticed that in Quant he needed more help, right? Because there were a lot of blue areas where he needed to work at. So notice how many quizzes he took. Some short quizzes to improve his application, conceptual understanding. Then some full length quizzes to ensure that he gets used to the timing aspect also. Same for verbal. Started off with a few quizzes, short quizzes, moved on to a full length quiz, and then specifically worked on areas that he was not doing well. And during the time when he was taking these quizzes, you notice these are all in November, like 10th, 11th, 25th, 29th. Notice his mark score that increasing. Just look at this. Took the first mock around 20th November. By the time he was done till here, 20th November, somewhere here. Okay. Realized that he was doing well in quant, not in verbal. Okay. Practice a lot of verbal official questions. This is what was suggested to him because he hadn't done official questions at that point of time. Took the exam again, increased his verbal score. Wasn't focusing on quant, so quant dropped a bit. But then, with a little bit more practice again, he shot it back up. So you have to believe the process is what I'm trying to tell you. It's very important. So, and I would really want you to listen to him, look at his success story, and kind of understand his viewpoint, how he did it. Ended up with a 720. Applied to INSEAD, Kellogg, Cornell, got calls from all three of them, converted all three of them. Okay, so my only request is that you need to believe the process. If you are somebody who does something like this, which I'm showing you now, you read the question stem quickly, have a rough understanding of, like somebody asked me now, how would I do a CR question in 2 minutes, right? So this is how somebody would do it. Read the question stem quickly, have a rough understanding of it, eliminate 2 to 3 answer choices based on that understanding, but then you'll get stuck with 2 to 3 answer choices. Now tell me, how many of you are still there? How many of you have been in the situation, stuck with 2 answer choice, don't know what to do? And what did you do after that? Have you been in such a situation where you're stuck with 2 answer choices? How many of you have been? If you have been, a quick yes. And what did you do in this case? Had to go back to STEM. That's like thanks Arpit for telling me. That's a standard thing, right? You end up, you have to go back to the STEM. There's no other option. You reread the question stem, you reread the answer choices multiple times, you realize you're wasting time, and then you end up marking something. And what are you trying to do? You're just trying to save some time here. You think, okay, let me just spend 20-30 seconds here. I'll be able to eliminate answer options very quickly. So you feel good about it. Like in 1 minute, I've eliminated 2 to 3 options. But you don't realize that this ends up taking a lot of time. This ends up taking another 1.5 to 2 minutes. And you end up taking 2, 2.5 minutes for no reason. This is the wrong approach. Don't follow this. You do this because you're worried about timing. And believe me, I've showed you a case. You look at the, uh, video also of the student of Manisha's interview. You realize he did not follow this. That's not the right way to do it. You just do it once. You know, you understand the method. If you've understood the method, you apply that methodical approach. Whatever method that you're learning, you apply that methodical approach and read the question stem properly. Like if you take the CR example, you have to read the question stem really well, understand it really well. Then you want to look at the question stem, figure out what are they asking you. I've seen people reading very quickly and making a mistake between not understanding whether they are trying to solve an assumption question or strengthen question, or an inference question or strengthen question. I've seen people making a mistake because they look similar. Okay, because you're reading very quickly. Don't do that. You may be able to save 30 seconds there, but it's not going to help you. So if you're worried about timing, don't be. Okay, understand the method, solve one question at a time using this method. This is like learning a new thing, the way we used to learn as a child. We used to learn numbers, we used to learn about fractions, and they were pretty difficult in the starting, right? Because they were new. But once you got to get the hang of it, now we can add, subtract, do whatever, multiply very easily. Why? Because now we're used to it. The same thing works here. If you're learning a new process, you have to get used to it. Okay, and once you're comfortable with the process, okay, once you've understood it, after applying it, you have to review the solutions really well. This is really, 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 really important, because you need to understand where are you deviating. If you understand where you are deviating, you can work on that, right? You can say, I missed this step, I wasn't thinking about it. Okay, so this is, if I can avoid this mistake next time, I'll be able to save time. So review is like a very important step that you need to follow. Don't just practice, 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 practice with the hope that you'll improve. Not gonna happen. Okay, so if you want to master application of the concept, the funda is pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward. It seems so simple, that's why people don't want to follow it, but you need to learn the concept. Okay, practice 30-40 questions one at a time, maybe, to understand the approach. Once you're comfortable with the approach, you start working on your timing. And because, see, if you're comfortable with the approach, what's going to happen is, once you start trying to reduce your time, it will happen gradually, because you have internalized the process, right? Like if I have to do 15 plus 35, I'll do it very quickly because I've internalized the process. I know it's 50. Doesn't take a time. Doesn't take a lot of time. The same works here. Once you internalize the process, it becomes very easy. Okay, I'm reading a CR question, since I know I have to ensure that I have to figure out which part is the conclusion, which part is the premise, which part is the counter premise. Or if I'm doing an SC question, I have to make sure that I understand, okay, where's the subject, which one is the modifier, if there's a list, I'm dealing with parallelism. You have to understand the different parts of the sentence, right? And same goes for quant. If you're doing a quant question, you need to, if you're doing a word problem question, you need to be able to translate the question properly. So while reading the questions, and you should be able to understand, hey, this information will help me set up an equation, so let me do that very quickly. But this only happens once you internalize the process. Otherwise, it's not going to work out. You'll keep on wondering why you're not improving in SCCR. uh, and as I mentioned, for any part, be it mocks or anything, or quizzes, review is the most important step. Ideally, what I would suggest is, if you're taking a mock, say for example, if in the mock phase, you take mock once on Monday, then if required, spend just 1 day on analyzing it. Analyzing plus practicing or reviewing concepts that you're not good at. Spend 1 or 2 days here very meticulously. This is going to help you increase your score a lot. Then maybe on the third or fourth day, you take your mock two. If you need more time, take more. I'm just saying 1 to 2 as just a suggestion. If you need 1 to 3, or if you need 1 week also, if you realize you're aiming for a 700 and your score is in the first mock is 600, there's a huge gap that you need to cover. Then in that case, you may need 2 weeks also. That's possible. But once you identify the gaps between 500 to 600 to 7, what are the gaps, you can work on that. But if you take mock one, you figure out, hey, I'm not doing well in time, so let me take a second mock. I'll be careful about it. You didn't do anything different, so you won't see any improvement. So to summarize, what I would say here is that make sure that the first important point which I said is that when I say that you have to do well in the initial few quarters, it doesn't mean that you have to spend more time. Devoting extra time will not ensure high accuracy. Okay, you have to reduce your time in your practice phase only. You have to ensure that you're applying the right process. And the third point, which is like very, very important, is don't change your strategy on the test day. If you're doing something in the mock, make sure you do the same thing in the exam. Like I said, some people end up taking 3 to 5 minutes for a particular quant question, thinking that they can get it correct, which they never used to do in the mock exam. If you do something different in the main exam, the score will go down, basically, as simple as that. Okay, if you feel anxious, it might happen. As I said, some people get nervous because they feel the first 2 quarters they haven't done well. Pause for 10-15 seconds, guys. Try and remember what I've said, that a 47-48 is still better than a 44. A 35-36 is still better than a V30. So if you feel that you haven't done well in the first 2 quarters, that's okay. Try and salvage as much as possible in the third and fourth quarter. Okay, and it's also quite possible that it might be in your mind, you might be thinking that you are not doing well. We had students like that who felt, hey, they haven't done well in quant, and so they messed up verbal, and when the result came, they realized they had a 48 or 47 in quant, and vice versa also. We have seen the same case. So just take your exam to the best case. If you feel that you're getting anxious, just take a strategic break of 10-15 seconds. Ask yourself, what is the right strategy, what have I learned, from this webinar if you want to take that takeaway and do well. This is something which I mentioned for Quant, works for verbal both, that you need to get as many consecutive questions as possible. I know it's not all in your hands, but the first two quarters, that is what will matter. The bigger the streak, the higher the score will be. And also, as I said, somebody was talking about what will happen if I get two questions wrong in the first quarter, two questions wrong in the second quarter. This is where this matters. Where did you get those two questions wrong? If you got those two questions wrong back to back in the first four questions, the score will drop a lot. But if you have two mistakes are like your fourth and the seventh mistake, then 11th mistake, then 15th mistake, if the gap is huge, then there's still a good chance that you will be able to do well and get a good score. Okay. And this is the last part which I've already mentioned, that spend more time on reading the questions. And both goes for both quant and verbal. In quant also, I read very slowly. When I say very slowly, I mean I read it at a pace that I'm very comfortable with, at a pace where I understand everything very clearly. Okay, so don't take slowly literally that you need to go slow, but what I mean is read it at a pace where you understand each and every sentence properly, and you will be able to translate and write an equation, or can figure out what you need to do next. Also, see, I've seen people making a lot of strategies, right? Thinking that, okay, what if I take 10 minutes, what if I do, give 5 minutes more in the first quarter, 7 minutes less in the second quarter, blah blah, those kind of things. But understand, if your concept is not good, if you're not learning your concepts properly, if you're not going through all of quant, which I mentioned, a lot of people skip topics. If you feel that, okay, out of SCC or RC, let me just skip RC. If you kind of think in these ways, then it will be very difficult to get a V40 or a Q50. Okay. So at any point of time, make sure that you're comfortable solving medium questions of all topics, be it SCCR, RC, quant, anything, any section. You should be comfortable solving medium questions comfortably with 100% accuracy if possible. For medium hard questions, you can vary your accuracy based on what you're targeting. So if you're targeting a V34, 35, then you can compromise with the accuracy. If you're targeting a V40, then you obviously need a slightly more accuracy, higher accuracy. Okay. So, guys, that's it from my end. As I said, I would be taking about 40 minutes, ended up taking an hour, but that's okay. I still have time. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. In the meantime, I am sharing my Canal link also. In case you want to talk to us, if you're preparing for GMAT, you want to know how we can help you, please feel free to book a call using this link. Also, let me know how you found this session. It's very important. So whether it was helpful or not, what are your takeaways? Especially mention your takeaways, because I really want to see, whether you're taking the right takeaways or not. And in fact, if you have any questions which you think I haven't addressed, this is the right time to ask. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. This is a Calendly link. In case you want to talk to us, if you want to figure out how we can help you, please feel free to book the using this link. And this is Manish's interview YouTube link. Do watch it. He also talks about his application process also. So if you want to understand end to end how he prepared for GMAT, how he worked on his application, this is the right interview that you should definitely look at. And obviously, if you have any questions on the screen, I've given Piyush's email ID. Please feel free to write to Piyush. And there's a WhatsApp number also in case you want to just ping us. You can do that on the WhatsApp number. I would highly encourage those of you who haven't looked at a free trial to look at it once. A quick few announcements I would make. There are two announcements, in fact, which I would want to make. If some of you are considering GRE also, then we have recently started GRE Viz also. Okay, so if you want, you can take a look at GRE Viz. I'm sharing the link here. So we have launched with Quant. Verbal is still in the beta phase, but we are giving verbal complimentary at this point of time. So, and if you're contemplating between GMAT, GRE, or if anyone wants to understand which one to take, which one not to take, then use a Calendly link, book a call. We'll help you out understand which one you should do, which one you should prepare with. And if you want to check out GRE Viz also, you can definitely do that. So that's the number one announcement. Those of you planning to take GMAT, we are launching there are two product launches that are going to happen. We are enhancing our study plan. It's going to get more personalized, and it's going to happen in the next 2 days. And we're launching Quant 2.0 also, so which is way better than anything that you'll see in the anywhere in the industry is how I'll put it. I'm pretty confident about that because you have taken a lot of feedback to develop it. So if you're interested, I would highly recommend checking it out. After a few days, we'll be adding the new content of Quant soon. Okay, that's it from my end, guys. Questions? Thanks, Arpit. I'm glad that you like this session. Any other questions? Any other doubts? I'm sharing the Canada link once again, just in case if you want to, you know, take a look at it. No questions? All good? All clear? Okay, I'll very quickly summarize and then maybe end the session. Okay, okay, I see a question. Would the new content of Quant be available to the new content will be available to everyone? We'll be sending out a mail either tomorrow or day after, where we'll explain how the transition is going to happen so that the transition is smooth. So all new users, old users, any current student, everyone will have the access to the new course. Okay. I'm pretty excited. It's with this, we had spent about close to 1.5 year developing it, taking a lot of feedback, looking at a lot of data of students, where they're doing well, what can be improved, what cannot be improved, and then on the basis of that, we are coming out with this. So I'm pretty sure this is going to help students improve way faster than they're doing now. The current course is also good, by the way. Just to clarify, people are getting a Q4950 using that course. Also, Manish, in fact, had a Q50. But I'm just saying that this may even be better than what we have now. Okay. Okay, guys. So I don't see any more questions. I'm ending this session. In case you have any queries, just feel free to write to us at piyush@gmatfist.com or support@gmatfist.com. Both these emails at work. And if you want to talk to us, figure out how we can help you out, either with GMAT or GRE, please feel free to use the Calendly link to book a session with us. Okay. Okay, I'll take up one question which I can see in the screen. Are the practice tests from a non-official sources such as Princeton Review, Manhattan, good indicators of performance on the actual GMAT? Um, See, it's difficult to comment on this. We understand this that none of these. When I say none, I'm including the official ones also, by the way. Okay, because see, I said for official also to just subtract 10, 20 points. So for all of these mocks that are there, be it Manhattan, Princeton, or Veritas, or whatever you want to take, there will be some deviations. Okay, and the deviations have been discussed on the forums a lot, that by how much the deviation is. I would recommend looking at the GMAT club to see what kind of variations people are seeing, but there will definitely be variations of plus minus 20 to 30 points on all of these. Even in our case also, we keep a buffer of 20 points, just to be very honest and frank with you. So when our students come up and they tell us that they have got a 720, 740 on GMAT quiz mock also, then we look at the mocks very closely, understand how because we capture a lot of data on. Believe me, if you can take a free mock and you'll realize that we do an extensive, detailed, give you a very detailed report card. So we look at it and then we figure out whether how close or how to the actual score it could be. But even then also, we kind of expect the division of 20 to 30 points. So for these also, you can expect the same. But for practice, see, as I told you, if you are looking for free resources, all of them provide one free mock. So if you're just looking to practice and figure out whether those mocks are suitable for you or not, I know a lot of people who say, hey, X mock is not good because the quant is stuff, or X Y mock is not good because the verbal is stuff. I'm not going to name X and Y or anything like that. But that is a call that I would believe that you should be able to take based on, on your own experience. That's why everyone provides a free mock. So you take that free mock and then you take a call. I hope that answers your question, Pranjal. Any other question, guys? Mhm. Once again, guys, those of you are there, if you have liked the webinar, I would again encourage you to hit the like button on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you're watching it. Um, these likes can help us a lot. Okay, I don't see any more questions. So I'll end the webinar. If any more question comes up, I'll just reply on YouTube directly. Okay. So have a great day, guys. I'm ending the session now. If you have any questions, once again, the information is on the screen. Feel free to reach out to us. Okay. Bye.